All right. Episode number 2, acquiring a new property. So just a continuation of my story, of my previous story. Um, right after I closed on the property, I had to, like start to look for a contractor, a local a contractor, to start doing renovations, right? But before I go deeper into the mistakes that I made on this property. Let me show you guys first what I do whenever I want to whenever I am acquiring a property, and that has always been the question for me is that, Alex, how do you know that if there's money on the deal, what's the right property for you, right? How do you know if the property is the right property um, that you're gonna make money on, right? So let me show you first what I do, right? Like when I'm qualifying a property. So just like I always have tell my client or the people that I give advice on, there are always four ways to make money on a real estate, and that is your appreciation, your forced appreciation, your principal recapture, and your cash flow. There's actually five. Your the fifth one would be your private lending, which is kind of your specialized field, right? But let's talk about on the main four ones. Whenever I'm buying a property, because I am from Toronto, so I've always buy property within the city, within the close proximity to the city. So I'm always going after appreciation. And for those people that saying that like you should never buy a property based on appreciation, well, like there are people have a different tolerance, right? Real estate investing, and the beauty about like real estate investing is not your one-way street, right? There are many different style of investment based on your risk, your tolerance, right? And if somebody would tell you that you should only buy property with a cash flow, they're not telling you right things, right? Because there are different people that have different style, different financials, right? I'm different. I've made money on just on the appreciation. It's not something that I would advise on other people, but that has been my style because I always buy property, within the city, within the close proximity to the city. And the reason why people would buy property based on your cash flow is because they're buying property in the remote places, right, where the appreciation is not comparable to what we experiencing in like Toronto, for example, right? So how do I qualify on the property? So let me show you first what I do when it comes to numbers. I think it's better for me to show you numbers. I don't know why there is always a thumb on my screen. Um, Let me show you first what what I do like when I'm qualifying a property um, in terms of a number. What makes sense to me. All right, guys. So here's the continuation of the video. Here's what I do whenever I see a property to make sure that I have the right numbers. And this is the calculation that I go through whenever I see a property to make sure if the property does make sense for me to acquire it or not. Okay, so let's look at this chart, for example, and I'm gonna use the proper number that I used at that time. So I bought this property for 630K with a 20% down, so that leaves me about 126,000 down payment. Okay, with so there's no CHMC because I had to go with the 20% down, which leaves me a mortgage of about 504,000. Okay, at that time I did remember, since this was the beginning of 2022 when the market is still hot, and the interest rate at that time is only 2.5%, and I did remember that, right? So whenever I see the current rate, I always benchmark it higher, and the reason for that is because you want to leave room for your own expenses in case that the interest rate goes up, which what is happening right now, right? So at that time the interest rate is 2.5%, so I had to benchmark it based on the my based on my projection of a 5%. I didn't see at that time that the rate would go up with the a 5% mark, because nobody could have like predicted what would happen now, right? So that's where we at then. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that also in the same boat as me that didn't predicted that the rate will go way past the 6% mark, right? So the amortization that I use is at 25 years, right? I actually got this a property with the 30 years amortization, but just for the sake of math, I had to use the conservative numbers, which is the 25 years. So that left me with about 2,946 with my mortgage, okay, with based on the 5% rate, okay. I had to factor in my TMI because my property is because I was going after a student rental. So this is not your traditional like tenant, right? Um, so my TMI is my taxes is 300, my insurance is 250, my water is 150, my hydro is 150, and I had to leave room for my repairs and maintenance, which is about 5%, and my vacancy rate I had to leave room for about 10%. So I know for the fact that my property is solid, and because I just recently made like renovation, and I didn't do like shortcuts, so I know for the fact that I'm very safe here. Okay. Now, I also know that the current rental in like where I'm at is that I could rent a property, since I am in the good location and I have a good property, that I could rent per bedroom about 850, right? Per bedroom. So I had to push it. So I had to do like renovation, and I had to push it for 6 bedrooms. So which turns out to be about my monthly rental income is 5,100, which gives me at the 5% down, at the 5% rate, that gives me about 539 cash flow. So that's what I was looking at. So that's how I know that the property is a solid property for me to acquire. Okay, in terms of a down payment, so here's what my down payment looks like: 126k, plus your I had to pay for inspection, like renovation. I had to pay about like 60 grand for like renovation, uh, and so that actually comes here in the initial improvements. Land transfer tax about 8k, and like legal costs about 1,700, right? So that leaves me about like a little bit shy about like 200 grand, right? So 196 200, right? So this is what my number looks like when the interest rate is in the 2.5%, which I benchmark it higher. So in today's climate, we all know that the rate is now hovering higher than this, which my current interest rate right now is 7%, right? Which gives me about negative $77 a month, right? So that's what I'm looking at. So all my property, this is what I'm getting on my rental, and about 77 negative cash flow, which is not bad, because I know that there are more people that is even worse than this, right? So I'm just waiting for the property to go up in a value, like for me to like refinance, so I could take out my money, and I could repeat the whole cycle again, right? So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm gonna show you more about what the rest of my mistakes that I made along the way on my next video.